Good day, YouTube. This is Jay Money with Falling Forward Financial. Just come across this article today, and those of you that follow my channel know I talk about MJ a lot, and here on the channel, I feel it's going to be one of the next big booms. Just something that I've had a feeling that could make some money off of, and therefore I've been covering about as many MJ stocks as I can and purchasing just as much as I can, and we'll see what the future holds on these. But come across this article today about federal MJ legalization is stopped in its tracks. Anytime I see something about this, I try to do a video about it, and just try to make the best of it. It's got to happen someday, so it's not if, it's when, but the when is always a mystery. So, but public opinion states and even the GOP have come around to the idea of legal weed. So how hard is it finally to get done? So, kind of had a decent weather here today, and I went out for a walk after work, and no more got down the street, and a car passed, and I could smell weed, and there's on my walk a house that I always smell it at, and then there was another car so I live in a state where it's not legal. I'm in Nebraska, Omaha, same as Warren Buffett, and I smell it here all the time, and it's not legal here, so I feel may as well just legalize it and tax it and be done with it and go on to some other pressing issues, but we'll see when that happens. But it's been nearly a decade since the first time a majority of Americans supported legalizing MJ. 2 years ago, that number reached a record high, according to Gallup, with 68% supporting MJ legalization, a number that has held steady since. That same year, the 19 pandemic engulfed the country. In March of 2020, medical MJ business were declared essential, allowing them to remain open along with pharmacies. So you thought that would have helped a lot of these move forward, but it still hasn't yet. So, but MJ is one of the fastest growing industries in the United States. That's why I follow it so closely, and like I said, I feel it's going to be the next big gold rush, if you will, and something to make money off of. So, but sales of adult use and medical MJ products hit $25 billion in 2021, and by Wall Street estimate could reach $100 billion by 2030. So that's 4 times in a little bit less than 9 years. So, well, 8 years now. So. But 18 states have legalized MJ for adult use, and another 19 currently have at least a comprehensive medical MJ program. As of 2020, 1 in 3 Americans lived in a state with access to legal MJ. And according to Politico, and that number of quickly growing on the East Coast catches up with the West. Last year, Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, Virginia all passed adult use MJ laws, joining Maine, Massachusetts, and Vermont. Rhode Island lawmakers are expected to approve a legalization bill this month. So, like I said, anytime I find an article on this, I make a video about it. So you can check within the last 2-3 weeks. There's a couple of those, and I'll link those in the description as well. But under the Federal Controlled Substance Act, MJ remains classified as a Schedule 1 illegal drug with no medical uses, on par with heroin and LSD. Drug Enforcement Agency strictly limits MJ cultivation for research, frustrating scientists who are unable to investigate its medical benefits and risks under current regulations. So rescheduling MJ for research was an oft-repeated promise of a president campaign, along with the pledge to decriminalize the use of MJ and grant clemency. So still haven't got that done. That was one of their big promises. And as you look at the timeline, when he got into office and everything ran up to their all-time highs, I believe on February 10th of last year, which I pointed out numerous times. and then they all came down after Schumer declared that it would never be legalized under the Biden administration. And if you just look on the calendar, the timeline, and check any MJ stock out there from February 10th, they hit the highs and came down through October, November, started going up a little bit in December, and finally started going up a little bit more this year. And then I believe February 10th of this year, it come out and said it could be worked on again underneath Biden. So we'll just have to wait and see. I don't believe hardly a thing that you say, but just have to do the research. So, but after 1 year in office, Biden promises remain unfulfilled. And January Yuga poll of 1,500 people has showed that more than half of Americans believe that Biden's administration has made little to no progress advancing MJ reform, like they said they were going to. But critics of legal MJ cite the potential for confusion among law enforcement agencies keeping up with evolving regulations, concern about minors gaining access to the drug, a potential drop in property values, and more for maintaining MJ's status as an illicit drug, though it looks like legal MJ can actually increase property values. So just look at Colorado. So they're getting more than enough taxes, and one of the first states to be legalized. So all in all, the Biden administration seems to be pretty anti-weed. So legal MJ, however, also presents a tremendous financial opportunity. Again, look at Colorado. And despite federal inaction, the industry is growing fast. A report from MJ website Leafly shows there are more than 428,000 full-time jobs in the MJ industry and 33% increase in jobs just the last year. So even though fallout from the lack of federal legalization is felt by many sectors of society, medical research is installed. Prisoners are languishing in jails. Small businesses are going under without access to federal banking. And big MJ companies face stiff challenges in raising the money to stay afloat as long as MJ is illegal under the federal law. So, like I said, it's not if, but when. It's got to happen at some point in time. But historically, Democrats have championed legalization as a social justice issue. Gallup poll numbers indicate that half of Republican voters now also support legal MJ. Support among younger Republicans is especially high, says Morgan Fox, political director of the National Organization for the Reform of MJ Laws. It is difficult to find any issue right now that enjoys as much as public support as ending a prohibition for MJ. It seems increasingly likely that bipartisan effort to legalize MJ at a full level will pass in the next few years. So it could take a couple years, so who knows. 2 to 5, I would assume it would be done, but again, who knows. So might have to wait until the current administration gets out of office. So to that end, several pieces of legislation are being pushed forward. February, a bipartisan coalition of House of Lawmakers, include Republican and Republican Matt in Florida, demanded that medical or MJ Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement or MORE Act is expeditiously considered by the House and the Senate. And they just did some voting, I believe, a week ago Monday, and haven't really heard the turnout from that yet either, but it's likely several pieces of legislation will be necessary to address the labyrinth issues around MJ legalization. Another piece of legislation aims to change federal regulations for MJ-related businesses. The Safe Banking Act, which has been passed by the House 6 times, Since it was first introduced in 2013, if the Safe Banking Act were signed into law, federal regulators would be prohibited from handing down penalties to banks serving licensed MJ businesses. And under the current laws fearing federal prosecution, most large financial institutions, including Visa and MasterCard, refuse to work with MJ businesses. A lack of business to traditional banking services make MJ stores especially vulnerable to theft, fraud, and violent criminal crime, since largely forced to operate an all cash only business. So there's a couple shows on Netflix that shows like security guards standing outside of these warehouses because they're just full of cash. So kind of interesting. During one wave of looting in 2020, 43 MJ dispensaries on the West Coast were targeted and robbed. Federal reform would prevent regulators from penalizing banks who do business with the industry and allow MJ businesses to operate with safer, more trustworthy financial practices rather than relying entirely on cash. Safe Banking Act will, with its bipartisan support since its inception, with most recent attached to a manufacturing and innovation bill called the American Competes Act in February and passed the House with the vote of 222 to 210. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell condemned Democrats for including the provision, calling it a poison pill. Safe Banking Act also failed to come to a vote in the Senate. So, seems like just one thing after another. It gets closer and then it gets pushed back, and the stock prices, you can see, go up and they go down to follow the action as well. Yet another bill is now making the rounds. The States Reform Act was introduced by Republican lawmakers last year, sponsoring Republican Nancy Mace. South Carolina, the legislation was framed as an alternative to Democratic-led reform proposals and would end federal prohibition and regulate MJ under various agencies, including the Department of Agriculture and the Food and Drug Administration for growers, consumers, and medical MJ patients. It attempts to bridge the partisan divide by including expungements for those for non-violent MJ convictions and a 3% federal excise tax to fund law enforcement, small businesses, and vendors' mental health initiatives. So there's a lot of good that could come about from this. Just need to get it to that point and just move on with it. But finally, legalization advocates are hopeful that yet another bill, the MJ Administration and Opportunity Act, which could be introduced as soon as April, will provide federal lawmakers the opportunity to debate MJ policy in the Senate. Sweeping bill co-sponsored by Senators Cory Booker, New Jersey, and Ron Wyden, Oregon. The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer aims to delist MJ from the Controlled Substances Act while recognizing existing state laws. So again, we'll just have to wait and see what happens with this, but since 1996, when California passed the nation's first medical MJ law, a number of factors have driven states to pass some form of legislation, including the rising costs associated with arresting and incarcerating nonviolent drug offenders, growing scientific evidence of the therapeutic benefits of the plant, the shift in the public attitude toward MJ use, and of course MJ as a source of tax revenue. So that's what I keep saying, just get on with it, legalize it, and tax it, and once the government gets a taste of that, it'll just be a done deal from there. But I just don't know why they can't move forward, but federal regulation would not disrupt existing systems and wouldn't force states to legalize, Fox said. If for this reason and others that some believe federal legalization could make things worse, according to the Shalene Title, Chief Executive and MJ Policy think tank, Parabola Center, and is a prominent voice in the legislation policy. If local policies are confusing and chaotic and inequitable, passing a state legislation law doesn't automatically fix the problem, Title says. We've seen this in California, Massachusetts, and other states in some way. And if you add another layer of chaos by putting the federal government in charge when it is only expertise has been in arresting and prosecuting MJ users, not regulation, we could end up with some worse problems than what we have now. So we'll just have to wait and see. But this I also thought was interesting. Last year, Amazon announced its support for legislation to federally legalize MJ and to end the drug testing of its employees for MJ. The updated policy was widely celebrated by reform advocates, but also raised. And if you follow Amazon, they also made a couple videos how they're going to be doing a stock split, but always good to see major businesses like Amazon, what I just read, stop testing, and I suppose it does save them a lot of money, but government in charge when its only expertise has been in arresting and prosecuting MJ users, not regulation, we could help end up with worse problems. But issue a report last year on nonprofit group Drug Policy Alliances outlines protective measures that would allow existing state programs a grace period to transition to federal regulations while eliminating large corporations like Amazon from capitalizing on newly legal industry. So maybe you'll be able to order your products on Amazon someday. I'm sure that's what they're trying to push through. So maybe with the help of Amazon, maybe this will get pushed through. So we'll just have to wait and see. But the Drug Policy Alliance 2021 report of recommendations for federal lawmakers was extensive, authored by a group of reform advocates, public health professionals, regulators, and attorneys. And again, if you want to go right to the source, I found it on www.vox.com, and I'll go back up to the title so you can look it up if you'd like to read it for yourself, but just thought this was an interesting article, but just kind of continues to talk about some other states, but California collected around $870 million in adult use MJ tax revenue during 2020 to 2021 fiscal year. So right there's your answer why it needs to be legalized and just taxed on the revenue. But according to a 2018 study by New Frontier Data, a data analytics firm focused on the MJ industry, legalizing MJ nationwide, that could create as much as $130 billion in tax revenue and more than 1 million new jobs across the United States in the next decade. So not only is there jobs to be created, there's the tax money, and just need to get it done. So I'm just going to slowly scroll through the rest of this, but however, as the industry continues to grow, pressure is sure to increase the legislators to end federal prohibition one way or another, with more than 2/3 of Americans supporting legalization and bipartisan support for a federal MJ policy. It seems likely to happen at some point. Until then, the state solution may be best anyone can muster. So again, just have to wait and see what happens on it, but if you would like to leave your comments and any comment you have in regards to legalization, feel free. And if there's any other MJ stocks out there you want me to take a look at and make a video about, be happy to do that as well. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, go ahead and hit that for me, as well as subscribing, and hit the bell so you're notified of when the next videos drop. Again, this is J Money, Falling Forward Financial. Happy trading, happy investing, stay green. Cheers.